Long before stories were written, people believed the world itself could hear. Mountains, rivers, and trees were not silent objects, but living witnesses. In many ancient cultures, wisdom did not belong only to humans. It flowed through the land, waiting to be noticed. In early Anatolian folklore, elders spoke of the earth as something with a slow heartbeat. At night, when voices softened and fires burned low, it was said that the ground could be felt breathing beneath bare hands. Similar ideas appear in Greek myths through Gaia, the living earth who was not merely a goddess but the soil itself. Farmers whispered to the land before planting, believing intention mattered as much as labor. Night held special meaning in these traditions. In Norse legend, the night was personified as Naught, a gentle figure who crossed the sky bringing rest and dew. Darkness was not feared, it was trusted. People believed that the quiet hours allowed the world to speak more clearly, because humans finally stopped interrupting it. Across Mesopotamia, dreams were seen as messages rather than illusions. Clay tablets described night visions, sent to guide, not confuse. This belief survived in folk customs where important decisions were delayed until after sleep, allowing understanding to arrive naturally. Myths from many lands suggest that stories were first shared not to entertain, but to calm. Spoken slowly by firelight, they followed the rhythm of breathing. Their purpose was not to explain everything, but to make space for rest. These early legends remind us that listening was once considered a skill. As night returns, the world does not demand attention. It simply waits, inviting the mind to soften and remember how to be still. As night settles, the world grows quieter in a way that feels intentional. In old folk traditions, this was the hour when wisdom moved closer to the surface. Many cultures believe that knowledge did not shout, it waited. Across Northern Europe, one of the most enduring legends speaks of Mimir's well, a sacred spring from Norse mythology. It lay beneath the roots of Yggdrasil, the world tree, and was said to hold the memory of everything that had ever been. The well was not created by the gods, it existed before them. This detail matters because it suggests that wisdom itself was older than power. Mimir, the keeper of the well, was known not for speaking, but for listening. When Odin came seeking understanding, the price was not violence or conquest. It was stillness, sacrifice, and patience. Odin gave up one eye, not as punishment, but as a symbol. To see more deeply, one must see less broadly. Similar beliefs appear far from the north. In Anatolian folk stories, wells were places where names were whispered, so they would not be forgotten. In Celtic traditions, sacred wells were visited at dusk when the mind was calm enough to receive answers indirectly, through dreams or quiet certainty rather than words. Water, across cultures, represents memory. It moves slowly, reshapes stone without effort, and reflects only when undisturbed. This is why people have always found comfort near springs, fountains, and shorelines. The body remembers what the mind does not. These legends do not promise quick answers. They offer something gentler, the reassurance that understanding comes in its own time. As sleep approaches, the mind becomes like a well deep dark and patient, holding what matters without needing to explain it. In many ancient traditions, sound was believed to shape reality. Before written language, knowledge traveled through rhythm, chant, and melody. People did not only listen with their ears, but with their breath and heartbeat. This belief is preserved in one of the most enduring legends of the ancient world, the story of Orpheus. Orpheus comes from Greek myth, but traces of his story reflect much older folk beliefs about music as a calming and ordering force. His lyre was said to quiet storms, soften wild animals, and still human grief. These details are not meant to exaggerate his talent, but to express an idea shared across cultures, that harmony restores balance. When Orpheus descended into the underworld, he did not fight or plead loudly. He played. In early versions of the myth, his music did not overpower death. It reminded it of rest. Even Hades and Persephone, rulers of the silent realm, were moved not to emotion, but to stillness. Silence listened to sound, and in that pause, mercy appeared. Similar beliefs appear in Anatolian and Central Asian folk traditions, where lullabies were thought to protect sleepers from wandering spirits. In Celtic lore, harps could slow time, causing listeners to forget sorrow and hunger. These stories were often told at night, reinforcing the idea that sound could guide the mind gently towards sleep. Orpheus ultimately failed to bring Eurydice back to the living world, yet the myth was never told as a tragedy alone. His loss teaches that some boundaries remain, but calm acceptance is its own form of wisdom. Music, like sleep, does not change fate. It helps us rest within it. As night deepens, the world grows quieter, but it is never silent. The rhythm of breathing, the pulse in the ears, the distant sounds of life continue. These are the echoes of the ancient belief that sound, when gentle enough, can guide us safely into the dark. Ancient people believed that sleep was not an empty state, but a crossing. To fall asleep was to step briefly into another world and return by morning. Because of this, many folk traditions speak of gentle guardians who watched over the threshold between waking and dreaming. In Anatolian and Central Asian folklore, elders told of quiet mountain spirits who moved only at night. They were not seen as gods, but as watchers. Their role was simple: to keep balance. Travelers who respected the land slept peacefully, while those who rushed or mocked the mountains found rest difficult. These stories taught calm through reverence rather than fear. Similar figures appear in Greek tradition through Hypnos, the spirit of sleep. Hypnos did not command sleep, he invited it. He lived in a silent cave where light and sound softened before entering. Even the gods approached him gently. This reflects an ancient understanding that sleep cannot be forced. It arrives only when the mind feels safe. In Nordic folklore, small household spirits were believed to guard homes at night. They ensured fires did not spread and children slept undisturbed. People left simple offerings, not out of obligation, but gratitude. Protection was seen as a quiet agreement between humans and the unseen. Across cultures, these legends share one idea: rest is protected, not conquered. As night deepens, there is no need to remain alert. The world has its own watchers. Sleep becomes a doorway held open by patience, inviting the mind to pass through without effort. In many old legends, there are places that cannot be reached by walking. They do not appear on maps, and no ship can sail to them by will alone. These places arrive only when the mind loosens its grip on direction. One such place appears again and again in Celtic folklore, the Island of Rest, known by many names, but most often remembered as a land reached through sleep. In Irish tradition, there is Tír na nÓg, the land of youth. Early folk versions describe it not as a place of excitement, but of deep peace. Time there did not rush or stretch, it simply softened. People who reached the island spoke of a constant twilight, where the light was gentle and shadows never sharp. No one hurried, because nothing was waiting to end. Similar islands appear in Scottish and Breton tales, often revealed through mist. Sailors did not search for them. They found them only after exhaustion, when effort gave way to surrender. This detail is important. The island appeared when the travelers stopped trying to arrive. The purpose of these stories was not escape, but reassurance. They reminded listeners that rest exists beyond striving. Even if it cannot be held, it can be visited. Elders told these tales at night to calm anxious minds, especially during long winters when darkness felt endless. In many versions, those who returned from the island struggled to explain it. Language felt too heavy. They spoke instead of feelings, lightness in the chest, quiet in the thoughts, and a sense of being gently held by the world itself. As sleep approaches, the mind drifts much like those ancient boats, without destination, without urgency, and somewhere beyond effort, the island waits, not to be found, but to be allowed. Before clocks measured time, people learned it from fire. A flame does not hurry, yet it is never still. In many folk traditions, fire was treated with respect not because it was dangerous, but because it taught patience. In ancient Greek belief, the hearth was guarded by Hestia, a goddess who rarely appeared in dramatic myths. She did not travel or argue. She stayed. Her fire burned quietly at the center of the home, marking the rhythm of daily life. Families gathered near it at night, speaking softly, letting the day release its grip. A similar presence appears in Anatolian folklore, where the evening fire was believed to hold the memory of the household. Ashes were never scattered carelessly. Elders said the fire had listened all day and needed peace at night. This belief shaped the calm rituals of closing the evening. Lowered voices, slow movements, shared silence. In Slavic traditions, fire spirits were said to grow restless when treated impatiently. Flames flared when people argued nearby and softened when voices calmed. These stories were not meant to frighten, but to remind listeners that inner states affect outer worlds. Fire appears in bedtime legends as a guide into rest. Watching its steady movement slowed breathing and quieted thought. Long before modern understanding of relaxation, people knew that stillness could be learned simply by observing something that burns without urgency. As night deepens, the image of the hearth returns in the mind, a small, steady warmth in the dark. Like sleep, it does not arrive by force. It remains, waiting until the world grows quiet enough to meet it. Old folk legends often speak of paths that vanish when no one walks them. These were not roads of stone, but ways of moving through the world with care. To remember them, many cultures imagined a quiet guardian who watched over forgotten roots. In Slavic folklore, this role was sometimes given to the domovoi, or forest spirits, who guided travelers at night. They did not shout directions. Instead, they left small signs: a bent branch, a softened wind, a feeling of ease when the right way was chosen. Those who hurried often missed these signals. Greek tradition holds a similar figure in Hecate, known not only as a goddess of crossroads, but of thresholds. In early folk belief, she was gentle, carrying torches, not to alarm, but to mark safe passage. People left offerings at crossroads to acknowledge uncertainty and invite calm guidance. Across Central Asian tales, wandering elders spoke of unseen pathkeepers who appeared only to the tired. These figures did not lead forward aggressively. They walked beside the traveler until fear eased, then quietly disappeared. The purpose of these stories was not to promise direction, but reassurance. Even when the way is unclear, one does not walk alone. Rest itself was considered a path, one that could only be followed by slowing down. As sleep approaches, the mind releases the need to know where it is going. Thoughts wander, then soften. Like ancient travelers guided by subtle signs, we move gently toward rest, trusting that the path remembers us, even when we forget it. Before stars were measured or named, they were believed to be watchers. Many folk traditions describe them not as distant fires, but as quiet presences that observed without judgment. At night, people lifted their eyes not to ask for answers, but to feel less alone. In Mesopotamian legend, stars were thought to record the movements of time. They did not interfere, only remembered. Shepherds believed certain stars returned each year to check on the earth, ensuring balance remained. This belief brought comfort during long nights under open skies. Greek folklore speaks of stars as transformed beings, souls who chose stillness over struggle. Unlike gods who intervened, stars remained distant, offering consistency rather than change. Their steady patterns helped people trust that order existed beyond daily uncertainty. In Central Asian traditions, stars were said to listen to unspoken thoughts. It was believed that worries felt lighter after being held briefly beneath the night sky. Elders encouraged silent stargazing before sleep, allowing concerns to rise and dissolve without effort. Across cultures, these stories taught the same lesson. Presence does not require action. Watching can be enough. As the night deepens, the stars remain where they are, steady and patient. The mind, seeing this constancy, begins to rest. Sleep arrives not as disappearance, but as a gentle turning inward, while somewhere above the watchers continue, saying nothing, asking nothing, and allowing everything to be. Many ancient legends end not with departure, but with return. This may seem strange, but folk storytellers understood something important. Rest is not escape. It is a quiet, coming back to what has always been present. In Greek tradition, this idea appears in early versions of Persephone's story. While later myths focus on loss and seasons, older tellings emphasize balance. Persephone's descent into the underworld was not seen as punishment, but as a necessary rest for the earth. Her return did not erase darkness. It softened it. Similar beliefs exist in Anatolian farming folklore, where winter was spoken of as the land sleeping, not dying. Fields were left undisturbed, allowing the soil to gather strength. Elders warned that land forced to produce without rest would grow thin and weary, much like people. In Norse stories, even the gods were said to retreat into quiet halls during long winters, listening rather than acting. These pauses were not failures. They were preparation. Action without rest was considered unwise. Bedtime legends often return to this theme because it mirrored daily life. Each night, the mind steps away from effort, not to disappear, but to renew itself. Sleep was understood as a cycle, not an ending. As eyes grow heavy, there is nothing to resolve. Tomorrow does not need planning. Like the old stories, rest completes itself naturally. One does not travel far to sleep. One simply returns, slowly, gently, to the place where striving is no longer required. In the oldest folk traditions, stories were not meant to end sharply. They softened, like fire embers fading into ash. Elders believed that a clear ending woke the mind, while a gentle fading allowed sleep to finish the tale on its own. Across many cultures, there is a final, quiet belief that something always remains when words fall away. In Greek myth, even after gods retreated from the world, memory stayed. In Norse lore, after endings and renewals, silence was described not as emptiness, but as peace. The world did not vanish. It rested. Anatolian bedtime stories often closed by returning attention to the listener's breath. The tale would slow, details thinning, until only feeling remained. This practice mirrored the belief that wisdom settles best when untouched by explanation. In Celtic tradition, storytellers ended with phrases that meant the rest is for sleep to decide. What mattered was not the lesson, but the calm carried into the night. Stories were companions, not instructions. As the final images dissolve, there is no need to remember every detail. The body has already understood. Legends have done what they were always meant to do. Not to inform alone, but to soothe. The night continues without effort. Breath deepens. Thoughts loosen their hold. Somewhere between waking and dreaming, the ancient world remains. Quiet, patient, and listening, until morning gently calls you back. And until then, there is nothing left to do. Now, let's settle into a comfortable position and allow your body to become heavy. You arrive without traveling. One moment you are awake, and the next you are standing inside an ancient home that feels familiar, as if you have been here before. The stone walls are thick and quiet, holding the warmth of countless nights. A fireplace glows before you, its fire slow and steady. The light does not flicker sharply. It moves the way breathing moves. Naturally, without effort, you step closer and feel the warmth settle into your body. Your shoulders lower. Your jaw softens. No one is waiting for you to speak. No task remains unfinished here. Outside, the world has grown distant. Time moves differently in this place. The fire has been burning long before you arrived, and it will remain long after you rest. As you sit, you begin to sense the stories held within these walls. The well that remembered everything, the song that opened the dark, the quiet guardians who watched thresholds without being seen. They are not distant legends. They are part of the night surrounding you. With each breath, the room grows calmer, thoughts slow, as if they have learned the rhythm of the fire. You do not follow them. You let them pass. You are not here to understand. You are here to be held. The ancient home listens as you settle. The fire watches kindly, and sleep begins to recognize you. You remain by the fire, but something has shifted. The edges of the room soften. Shadows stretch longer, kinder. The ancient home is preparing for rest, just as you are. The fire lowers itself, becoming embers. Each glowing coal holds a fragment of story. Paths walked slowly, stars that never spoke, islands found only when striving ended. You do not need to remember them. They remember you. Your breathing deepens, matching the slow pulse of the night. You feel as though you are sinking, not downward, but inward, into a place where effort dissolves. Beyond the walls, the world continues, but it does not call for you. The guardians have taken their places. The watchers are awake, so you do not have to be. You lie down near the warmth, supported by stone and silence. The myths fade, not into nothing, but into feeling. Safety, stillness, belonging. Here, there is no beginning and no end, only rest. If a thought appears, it drifts like smoke and disappears into the dark above the fire. You do not follow it. You stay. The story has finished telling itself. Now it becomes sleep. And as the ancient home breathes quietly around you, you allow yourself to do the same until even the idea of rest gently fades into dreaming. Good night.